SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show, with hundreds of events listed, live concerts, sporting events, and so much more. Go on to SeatGeek.com, enter promo code Snake Sports Talk Show, and save yourself $20 off your first purchase.
Live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts right now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am glad that all of you have awakened on this Super Bowl spectacular Sunday this morning. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Live on all platforms, iHeartRadio, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram. That is where you can like, follow, and subscribe. And hit the bell button for all latest notifications on the show. By the way, we just got to 550 subscribers, and we are right down the road to getting to 1,000 subscribers. So I appreciate all of your guys' love and support for the show. Cool McCain going to be joining us, talking some Eagles and Chiefs Super Bowl in Arizona. We finally made it to that point. Two of the best teams, one in the AFC and another in the NFC. And it's always this time around that gets exciting. So I'm digging in deep on this because every team that has made it into the playoffs, we know that there were a lot of truths that were exposed. We know that there were a lot of concerns with some teams that are coming out that most of us, we're probably going to end up seeing and watching this of what they're going to do in the offseason. But two of the best clashing against each other. That is the Chiefs and that is the Eagles. What do both teams know that they carry to getting to this point of potentially becoming Super Bowl champions? We know one's got the quarterback and the coach. The other has an expendable team. And that's carried on with a real young and I believe a smart, brilliant head coach in Nick Sirianni, and one that a lot of people doubted so much, which is Jalen Hurts. My big deal with this kind of Super Bowl is that both teams, no matter how you look at them, they've got explosive offenses. One, I believe, has a much better defensive core than the other, but each of them could play situationally. The thing about the Eagles, and a lot of people doubt them and criticize them because of the fact of, well, they haven't really played a big-time elite team. Does it really matter? The fact of the matter is that they are stacked in the defensive line. The linebackers are just as explosive. Oh, and let's not forget about that shutdown defensive secondary. It's one of those ones that everybody all has questions about, but you are very sure about it once they're on the field. And I mean, they've dominated the last two opponents. They've only held to 14 points total, while they scored almost over 70. So you know that the Eagles, when they get on that roll, it's impossible to stop the train. It's nearly impossible. So I believe this Super Bowl will be entertaining because, of course, Andy Reid is facing against his former franchise, and the Kelsey brothers are both facing off against each other. And I believe this is going to be one of those narratives, whichever it may be, come tomorrow morning. When we find out who our Super Bowl champion is, the Eagles, who will win their second Super Bowl in franchise history. But understand something of what the difference was between the 17 and this year's team. Because both, I think, have one thing in common. It was a team effort to winning the Super Bowl. It wasn't about, Nick Foles came in at a magic moment when Carson Wentz was hurt. It was not one of those ones where, young head coach wasn't a part of any other tree like of Doug Peterson's and Andy Reid. We know Doug Peterson's a smart coach. That's why I think he'll succeed in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence. But every part of that Eagles team,
They had a great defense. Everybody on offense. I would say that this year's wide receiver core is a little more stacked than that 2017 because you're thinking Alshon Jeffrey, you're thinking Nelson Aguilar. You had several other really good pieces. But this year you have A.J. Brown, who is literally unguardable. Devontae Smith, who's fast and somebody who can get open. Plus, you have Zach Pascal as an X factor receiver. And there's Dallas Goedert. Now, we know the 17 season had Brent Selleck and Zach Ertz at the time. But once Dallas Goedert came in after Zach Ertz, he seemed like he was a much more productive receiver, and let alone a productive player. But Kansas City, has the narrative. And I want to start with the fact that Kansas City, we know, has pressure. The Eagles, we know, have pressure. This is not going to be one of those ones where it's going to be that easy playing this game. But I know that for Kansas City, they have been to the AFC Championship game 5 straight years. This is now their 3rd Super Bowl appearance in those 5 years. But one of my big things about Kansas City that a lot of people, what we don't seem to talk about is, first of all, we are not going to have another Tom Brady ever again. Back-to-back Super Bowl championships and 7 Super Bowls along the way. Mahomes only has 1. Let's slow the train down for Kansas City for a second. Because you know how heightened up that a stage like this can be. I believe personally, because this was just about as tough of a game as it is, but I do have my prime prediction at the bottom half of the hour, and this is where my prime prediction comes to a close. It has been such a fun, exciting, yet entertaining year when we had this segment, and I think I might have my prime 5 for the majority of the rest of the year because we have the NBA, we have baseball, and we also got the NHL playoffs coming around the corner. But I think this narrative, though, is going to be one that's going to be full of excitement, but it's going to determine would you rather trust? The quarterback and the head coach, who I know are both creative and I know both are smart. One, of course, had to clean up a lot of the quarterback's mechanics once he came in out of college. Or do you trust the expendability of the team like the Eagles? They're great on defense. They are great on offense. I would also say their special teams plays hard every single game. But Nick Sirianni, we know, is in a bigger stage. But we know he looks and feels and he fits like Philadelphia. You see him on the podium every single time when he comes up, and there's never a dull moment of Nick Sirianni at all. But Jalen Hurts has been part of this narrative since he was in college. He got doubted in Alabama, even though Alabama and Nick Saban, great program, great coach, made it into the national championship, but yet got benched for Tua Tagovailoa, who, by the way, has been hurt majority of the time in the NFL. And I hope that he does well in Miami. Then Jalen Hurts goes to Oklahoma, learns a little more, and masters his craft of offense with Lincoln Riley, who's now at USC, and with Caleb Williams. And then comes into an Eagles franchise where everybody was kind of sick of Carson Wentz at that time. Comes in, gives Philly juice, ends up, giving us a lot of what he can do as a second-round quarterback. But the next year is a full year. Yeah, the team had a rough spurt at 2-5, then got into a roll, got into the playoffs, 9-7, only to be stopped by Tom Brady and the Bucs. Now look at what this year has done. Howie Roseman is an absolute just magician when it comes to moving a lot of pieces, when it comes to making bargain deals. He is just the best at it. And you see it on the roster. The Eagles completely dominated the NFC because there wasn't anybody that was competing in the NFC. You really trust the Vikings in that defense? You really trust, San Francisco with their quarterback situation, which I know it sucks about Brock Purdy, but I know they've got a great defense, and I know Shanahan every year is always close but no cigar with himself. But I think this has been the most completed, stacked, and expendable team, not only just for the NFC, but I think in the narrative coming into the Super Bowl is why I think, honestly, Philadelphia, they get on a roll. It's impossible to stop the train, which is why I know Kansas City will have that feeling, but it'll be much more entertaining all throughout the way. So I've got two great guests with me who are talking about the side of the Philadelphia Eagles, the NFC champion team, who is now once again in the Super Bowl for the third time in or fourth time, I should say, in franchise history. And of course, there's a lot to be said about it. And joining me now, Key in the building, and Cool McCain of Eagles Elite. Here we are again, guys, for the fourth time in franchise history with the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's recap what this season has been about, and we'll start with either one of you guys. But ultimately, Howie Roseman was on the hot seat. We knew that for a fact. But then Howie comes around and plays what is, I believe, one of his smartest years as a general manager, to where he got A.J. Brown, he got Hassan Reddick back home into Philadelphia, and brought in a lot of really good key players who have played this well. How happy have you guys been watching this team from beginning and to where we are potentially in the end in the Super Bowl, of just how the Eagles played out, the head coach, Nick Sirianni, and the growth and development of Jalen Hurts? This has been an absolute story since the very beginning.
Well, since I am almost in the city of Philadelphia, we covered that draft, Jake, when Hurts got picked, and all the Eagles fans was butthurt about it. Oh my God, why did we take a quarterback in the second round? We shouldn't have did this, blah, blah, blah. Look at it now. Was it a good decision, Eagles fans? Was it a good decision? We all know how Carson Wentz was. Carson Wentz is poop. Carson Wentz is absolute poop. He got all in his head mentally that another quarterback was here. All he had to do was go play his game. Jalen probably would have been the backup somewhere. But probably wouldn't be in this position. But Howie Roseman, like you said, Jake, is a magician, knowing that he had to put help for Jalen Hurts. We only had Devontae Smith last year going into the playoffs, and we shouldn't have got there, but we did. We had the running game that's still successful to this day. So Howie Roseman knew that he had to put some help around a good, talented receiver as in Devontae Smith, and he knew that. So what did he do on draft day? He moved up in the draft, got Jordan Davis, and he also got A.J. Brown from the Titans, knowing that they wasn't going to pay him. And guess what? He is Jalen Hurts' best friend. So you already know they have connections. They have the chemistry. I forget the Washington game. We got demolished on the run game. And what happened? Right after that, you get a Linval Joseph and a Ndamukong Suh, and that defense to shut down the running game. Howie Roseman, I'll tell you, I'll need to take Howie Roseman to the dealership and I get a car so he can help me out on some deals. But shout out to Howie Roseman, and yes, he was on the hot seat. The Devontae Smith draft, they just extended his contract 3 years, and I was like, Howie about to come out firing, and he did. He came out firing, he came out swinging, and he came out hot in this draft too as well, grabbing up in the Kobe Dean in the third round that he was still there. Just all the pieces. So we got to give credit to Howie Roseman for putting his team together, especially the defense, Hassan Reddick coming home, Sweat and all these guys. At the end of the Super Bowl, it's going to be a big contract year. A lot of people are free agents, so we got to see who we're going to keep.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. I know you got a lot to say about this one, and I know this has been just an absolute story for what you've seen in the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you think?
Hey, man, I was there the year that, and obviously Key was as well. We were horrible. Like, when the whole division was bad, but we were really bad. The Carson Wentz saga, him not having the mental fortitude to deal with the fact that he wasn't the quarterback that won the Super Bowl. He rushed himself back the next year. The whole situation with Doug Peterson and guys he wanted on the staff and the beef he had with the organization and everything, even like a year or two after the win of the Super Bowl. But I think the biggest thing is, and it's a good and a bad thing that happened at the same time. The Jalen Hurts draft. The first round pick, Jalen Reagor, was trash. It was terrible. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Right? It should never have happened. No one had this guy with a first round grade that I saw in any draft predictors. Right? But losing Justin Jefferson stung. It still stings. He's Offensive Player of the Year this year, right? So it stings. But that was the catalyst for Devontae Smith being drafted. That was the catalyst for the trade for A.J. Brown this past offseason. Zach Pascal came in, a guy that does a lot that we don't talk about for the team as far as being the guy that does picks, being the guy that takes guys away, helps spaces get open, understands all those nuances that make the other guys look great. You talk about the run game. Boston Scott, an underrated small guy, but pretty powerful, right? He's a guy that we put in the goal line situations sometimes. He produces pretty well in those situations. Kenneth Gainwell, the young, explosive, the faster, I think, of all the backs on the team. And then Miles Sanders just puts everything together as a starter. Has had a career year for himself. So you look at that, you think about this line. This line has 4 dogs and a goat, right? And you laugh at the 4 dogs and a goat. Jason Kelce is an all-time great center, period. There's 4 other dogs around him that are also really great players. You go to the defensive side with 10 deep. I'm not going to take the time to name everybody, but Hassan Reddick, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to take the time to name everybody. Wide receiver, he said, this group is tight. It's amazing. We talk about QB1, who got disrespected in the MVP voting.
Yep.
I didn't think he was going to win, but he should have got more than 1 vote. That's another chip a couple of days before the Super Bowl. Thank you, NFL. Thank you. You just give us more and more and more and more fuel and motivation, right? I got on my Super Bowl champions hat from last time. I keep it fresh. I keep it nice because it's a memory. And the goal is, after today, to be getting a second one, right? Everybody knows I love hats, so.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple colors. And defensively, he talked about a lot of the great players that we added. But you also have, James Bradbury that we added, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson that we added, Kaiser White at the linebacker. So there's been, throughout the levels of the defense, we've made additions to make this defense better and better and better. And we're not going to be able to keep everybody, I don't believe, after this year. But if all that results in another Super Bowl for Philadelphia, it was worth it. If we have to be bad for 2 more years after this, I'm fine with that. I really honestly am. And some people may not say that, but I mean it when I say it. The goal is we're here. Finish the job. Jalen Hurts told Devontae Smith last year. He called him when he saw Joe Burrow and them make the Super Bowl and say, hey, man, we're going to be there next year. Miles Sanders said in his rookie interview he was going to help this team get a Super Bowl because he came the year after we won the last Super Bowl. And guess what? He's here. He's in a situation. There's a lot of guys that came because they wanted to help win. There's a lot of guys who stayed. There's guys who were here for the last Super Bowl, like Kelce, like Fletcher Cox, like Brandon Graham and different guys. There's new guys that came in as well. And what I want everybody to understand here is no one still likes us. We still don't care. We're from Philly. Effing Philly. No one likes us. We don't care. And we about to kill it today.
Always the Philadelphia spirit as well for both of you guys and for so many others that I've known as well in Philadelphia. And it is I've always said this about, the organization is it's a proud organization. It's one of those ones where it's full of just grit, determination. And I mean, it's hard playing in Philadelphia and the fact that you have the fan base, you have the media that knows how to rip players, and there's a lot of high expectations. But what's funny about this is that, and I've looked at every single team that got into the playoffs. You saw too in the off seasons, the ones that when they were making moves, it's a feeling of they are all in. They know this is the year to prove it. This is the year to really make it. And just to see a lot of the deals that the Eagles have made and what Howie Roseman's put together, I mean, it just showed you he was determined to make this happen. We know a lot of people were kind of like, they were gunning after Howie Roseman. They were hoping, Jeffrey Lurie, you were going to make the right decision with this. And sure enough, they've heard everybody's voices. They made it here, and now they're in the bigger stage. To talking a lot about, both the coach and quarterback, because we know on the other side, Patrick Mahomes is absolutely elite. He's a one of a kind. There's nobody like him. And then there's Andy Reid, a former Eagles head coach who has been to the Super Bowl with the Eagles, but lost against New England and has been to the Super Bowl since with Kansas City. I guess you can say it's like a match made in heaven between the two of them. How can you really pair like the dots because of the fact of now you have Nick Sirianni, a young head coach who now has a lot of pressure on his shoulders and there's a lot to play for. And then, of course, yes, the MVP snub from Jalen Hurts, but there's a chip on that shoulder. How can you connect the dots between both these sides with their coaches and with their quarterbacks? And what exactly makes it just a magnificent story behind it being in this bigger setting in the Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, so many places to start, right? So we'll start with the fact that first time in history, we have two African-American quarterbacks both starting against each other in the Super Bowl, right? That's a story in itself. Mahomes is the guy that people consider the future, like the next big thing in the NFL. Hurts is the anti-Mahomes in so many ways. He can throw. A lot of people don't want to give him the credit. Go watch the games. I watch them all 2-3 times. He can throw. He can make all the throws that's needed on the field. Now, the difference is the ability to be a real true dual threat quarterback and understand what a dual threat quarterback is. Yep. A dual threat quarterback is not a guy that can make 3 throws and then can run. A dual threat quarterback is a guy that can make all the throws with accuracy as much as a traditional pocket quarterback, but also has the added ability to turn himself into a running back when needed and make plays for his team. Jalen Hurts is a true dual threat quarterback. So if he wins this game, right, and I know and I believe every fiber of my being that that's what's going to happen, but if he wins this game, then you have the change to, we've had a true dual threat quarterback actually win a Super Bowl, right? So then you're going to see guys that are dual threats maybe getting drafted higher than they would have, being looked at more, being considered quarterbacks more. But the thing is, Hurts is very unique in that the fact that he went in and he decided that he was going to change how he approached the offseason, his throwing motions, all the things that were weaknesses last year. That's something that he did. That's not something the Eagles told him to do. I'm sure there were conversations about here's some things to improve on. But he put in the work, right? He's the son of a coach. He's always been around coaching. He understands the game. He has the mental capacity. He did this. He puts in the work. He's the first one in. Listen to his teammates. He's the last one out. Yep. You have these things happening. And then that's not to knock Mahomes at all, but this is a guy that's coming from a different perspective, but that you're going to have to also be mentioned and breath with for years to come. He's shown that if he can stay where he's at, I don't see why he wouldn't. I don't see why he wouldn't continue to improve. He's the guy you have to watch for. You talk about the coaching. Nick Sirianni was actually on Andy Reid's staff and got fired when Andy Reid was in Kansas City. So there's a little bit of I want to pay you back for that. You've got the Kelsey brothers, right? You've got Jason on our team, the all-GOAT center, I call him. You've got Travis Kelsey, one of the best tight ends in the league on the other team, right? So that's a great thing. Mama Kelsey's going to win either way, right? Because one of her boys is going to get another ring. You've got Shane Steichen, a guy that we know calls plays, does those type of things. His counterpart, Eric Bieniemy, doesn't get credit for calling plays. But I'll tell you, I've been watching some Chiefs games this year, And there's been a lot of times where the offense is on the field and Andy Reid's chart is hanging down by his side and he's looking around. He may be saying like one word or so in his mic, and plays are happening. Plays are called in for anybody who doesn't know each play at a time. Now, there may be a script where you have a few plays, but in the third, fourth quarter, plays are being called in by someone. So if you're telling me the enemy never calls plays, I don't believe you. I think that's a false narrative on Eric Bieniemy. Now, there may be plays that Andy Reid calls. Obviously, he's the head coach, so he has the final say-so. But Bieniemy is very involved in that offense and how great they've been since he's been the OC.
Yep.
So you have that. I think a big one that a lot of people aren't thinking about is whose defense is going to play the best. Because obviously on paper, the Eagles' defense is a lot better. There's the argument that the Chiefs' defense plays well because they get turnovers, they make timely plays. That defense that the Chiefs have is built to play one way, and that's from ahead because you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
You have running backs. Who's going to have the better game as a running back? Is it going to be Pacheco, McKinnon, and returning Claude Edwards-Helaire, or is it going to be the Eagles' three-headed monster?
Yeah.
Of course, you know who I believe is going to be, but these are storylines to watch and things to connect throughout the game.
Yep.
One team has the better receiving group. I think hands down everybody would agree. Tight end rooms. People may say Kansas City has a better tight end room, and they may have a slight advantage, right? Because Kelsey, I think at this point in his career, he has a slight advantage over my guy in Dallas Goedert. Mm-hmm. But these are two really good tight ends. They're going to be going head-to-head as far as stats, who's going to make the biggest impact, things like that.
Yep.
The Eagles wide receivers against the Chiefs secondary. Patrick Mahomes against the Eagles defense. There's so many different dots to connect for this game. You look at statistical-wise, these teams are neck and neck, right? I was actually on a show with a Chiefs fan earlier this week, and I'll stop at this point because I don't want to take everything from Keith. But I was on a Chiefs show, and he was talking about how he went back and watched the Eagles-Chiefs game from last year. And even with the Eagles not having the same defensive punch that we have now, not having the A.J. Brown, not having the Miles Sanders play the way that he's been playing this year, how close that game was. Yep. And how he, just like me, expects another close game. But at the end of the day, it's the freaking Eagles, and we're going to get the job done.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, the obviously the objective and, of course, the assignment that has always been put on this team is you got to finish it up. You started it up all throughout the offseason and then right into the regular season to get to the postseason, and here we are now. Now it's time to finish up the assignment and to do exactly what everybody had projected and had predicted to do. So, Key, I know you got a lot to say about, basically with just the entire narrative with the Eagles. But I think, Cool definitely had said it best. There are a lot of narratives that are behind this game. And I mean, a lot of people were really skeptical as far as what Nick Sirianni was capable of doing. But I think I honestly trusted a lot more. I mean, we started it with the whole Flowers deal. We started it with the whole, in the end, there was a lot of trust in Jalen Hurts. There was a lot of trust in his abilities and what he can do. And so I think ultimately it all just comes down to when you have a lot of familiarity in the organization, that's where you going into a bigger setting like this should not even be as difficult as a lot of writers and a lot of, analysts would put it out to be. But there's absolutely an assignment that's obviously at stake. And this is where I think Philadelphia has to close out that narrative, right?
No, most definitely. Jalen Hurts being back in the same system as he was last year is a key. We all see how many different quarterbacks, the carousel turns when different coaches come in and, they got to learn a new system. But Jalen Hurts being at Sirianni, he was there last year, and he's returning as a starter was a good plus. He already knew the offense. He already knew the system. He already knew what to do. And for him to go out on the offseason and you seen him getting work on his mechanics, we got to give a shout out to Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson's been with Jalen Hurts throughout his career. And he helped him so much in his career. He went out and worked with Tom Brady. The goals of all quarterbacks who you want to learn from, you go to Tom Brady. You could say Peyton Manning, but the fact that he worked out with Tom Brady, because we saw last year, Tampa Bay was mic'd up. You seen Todd Bowles. Y'all heard him. He can't read defenses. That's how Tampa Bay was killing us last year in the playoffs with the defense, because apparently Jalen Hurts couldn't read defenses. But what did he do in the offseason? He worked. Nick Saban defined his work ethic. He told him, go to Oklahoma because that's where the winners are. That's where the better players are. Go to Oklahoma. Don't go to Miami. Don't go to Maryland. Go to Oklahoma. And he worked on his craft. He works on the offseason. Jalen Hurts is the most humble guy I've ever seen in my life. And how people hate on him is crazy. What did he tell somebody? How do you in the huddle? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered? The time is now, and we got to go out and finish it. Nick Sirianni usually do a big speech. He didn't do one yesterday. He didn't do one. There's no need. That's how you know this team is prepared to go out there and do what they're going to have to do.
Yeah. Oh, I think the biggest thing is too, like, I think what really said it all was the fact that, like, we had the NFL honors as well, and we saw all the awards that were given out. And I think that kind of was that speech. The fact that, Jalen Hurts was snubbed out of, MVP and only got one vote out of it was absolutely unacceptable. And yeah, it was just absolutely unacceptable. And I think that point, that kind of said the narrative. Like, what was said was obviously said a couple nights before. And that's where, you're going to see Jalen Hurts really play out his best. You're going to really see, what Philadelphia is capable of, which I know they have a lot of strengths on their side. So this is where we get down to it, of course, like every other thing. Everything that starts up amazingly has to obviously come to an end. I've said this about, my prime prediction segment is it had been going strong all season long. Now we get to the prediction score. So, Key, what do you think is going to be the key things that you're going to look for in this game? And what is your final score prediction out of it?
All right. So obviously the Kansas City defense, and shout out to the Kansas City Chiefs. No shade to them. Definitely got one of the best quarterbacks over there. One of the best coaches over there. Of course, you got Travis Kelce, who we have to stop and defend. They got plenty of rookies on their side. Nick Bolton, Isaiah Pacheco, seventh round running back out of Rutgers. So this team is no slouch when it comes to players. Of course, like Cole said, our receiving core, I believe, is a little bit better. Again, you still got to look out for Juju Smith-Schuster. You still got to look out for MBS. Sky Moore is another rookie that they have over there. You got to look out for. Kadarius Toney is another one. But can this secondary put up and stop A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert? We all know we got to stop Travis Kelce. So Jalen Hurts has to play consistent football, mistake-free, because they're going to pressure him to stay in the pocket and not roll out. They're going to force him to be a quarterback and throw the ball, which he can do. But I'm just saying, so they're gonna bypass. They're gonna try to do what San Fran tried to do and not have him limited of running, because once he runs out of space, it opens up a lot, and it's a wrap from there.
Yep.
So my bold prediction is A.J. Brown, 2 tubs, 150. 30-27 is my final score. Jake Elliott, game-winning field goal.
Wow. All right. Going to leave it up to Jake Elliott to finishing up the job. Cool. What you got, man?
No, gee, I got to go behind that. All right.
We're going to get 2 picks on Pat.
Okay. So, for me, it's the defense. I think it's pretty clear that our offense should be able to make some plays on this defense. I'm not saying we're going to go out and dominate them, but we should be able to make plays. I feel like we definitely have an advantage in that matchup. But I think our defense versus the Chiefs' offense, I think we're going to get at least 1 pick from CJ. Then we're going to get some critical stops for them on 3rd down to put them in situations where they're not 4th and 1, so they're going to have to punt for kick field goals. Yep. As far as offense goes, my prediction is a little different from Keys. I think we're going to be looking at 8 to 10 catches, about 75 to 100 yards for number 6, Devontae Smith. At least 1 touchdown. I think he's going to be the guy because A.J. Brown is going to have a monster play early in the game. Mm-hmm. and then they're going to switch everything to try to take him away or make it as difficult as possible for him, which is going to open it up for Smith because you can't cheat away from Dallas Goedert. So I think Devontae is going to have one of those games where he has, 8 to 11 catches, somewhere between 85 and 100 yards, and at least one touchdown. Then we're going to run the ball well. I think in total we're going to have over 150 yards running between our running backs and Jalen Hurts. And then we're going to win the game 34 to 29.
All right.
29.
All right. I like that. I like that score. Both your guys' score predictions are absolutely flawless, and it's really just it's a lot of fun talking with you guys, and especially too like breaking down all the games. This is going to be one fun Super Bowl to watch, honestly. I mean, last year we got Cincinnati and the Rams, and it was all based upon one play. It was one possession play, and I thought it was amazing. And I think this narrative, I almost want to say it's a one possession play, but I think ultimately it's going to be coming out to who's got the upper hand on each side. And I think, the Eagles defense is going to make such a difference in this game. I appreciate all of you guys. As always, the battle cry, fly Eagles fly. Where can everybody find all of your guys' content of the NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, you're about to catch me here on the Sunday morning drive.
That's right.
Empire Network when I'm hopping off here. So I'll definitely a little bit more Eagles talk there.
Yeah.
Then also, man, this week is going to be Monday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, but normally it's Wednesday night. The Eagles Elite Podcast, we're year-round. We're talking Eagles all the time. Also, NFC Beast, it just finished on Saturday nights. That's also played on the Eagles Elite channel, and that's Eagles, and that's youtube.com/@Eagles Elite Podcast. Also on Friday nights, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, playcallersportstalk.com/live. And you can catch me all over the Sports Empire Network because this is what we do.
There we go. That is what we do. We have an assignment, and that's where we gotta accomplish it. Key?
Well, y'all know y'all can always find me again over here on the Sports Empire Network. But I'm always in the building, at Key in the building. So I'm everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. We trying to keep the door down. We're close to 500 over there. So go ahead and subscribe. Again, if you want to subscribe, that's fine. Look, I'm not looking to beg for subscribers. I just love what I do. Having fun with it. But I'm going to be live today for the Super Bowl. I'm at my brother's house, so it's going to be a great atmosphere. Come on over, tune in. We're gonna have some fun during the Super Bowl. Hopefully, y'all don't see me rant too much. Yeah.
There you go, folks. A lot of great content creators, and these guys have always kept it 110%. And here they are with their team in the final stages of the NFL season. This is where it all comes to a close. Fly, Eagles, fly, they always say. Great to have both of you guys on. It's been an immaculate season for you guys, and good luck in today's game. It should be an exciting one, but I can't wait, and I'll tune in to see what the narrative will be come tomorrow morning, because it's going to be a lot of recovering after a while. And let's just hope that the city stays in good hands, especially when we've got people climbing the poles. We got people, in the bus stops knocking down a lot of these covers. I better hope to see it's in great shape. And please, for God's sakes, if it does come down to Philadelphia, can we please support Rocky up there? Because I think that's a little bit of a disrespect right there. I think that's where
it's funny because Tuesdays is my office days, and I'm smack down in maybe almost the heart of downtown. So just letting y'all know, if Eagles go to this parade, I may not go to work that day.
Hell yeah.
I'm just saying, I may not go to work that day.
Absolutely. All righty, you guys, take care of yourselves. Enjoy it. Happy Super Bowl Sunday. And we're all going to be repping our colors because Super Bowl is a fun time of year. So take care of you guys.
See you later.
Appreciate it, man.
No problem.